Hello and welcome to tonight's show.
Welcome to another day in paradise and welcome to the final video of the Sri Lanka series. Last video I told you about the cost and the budget you have to keep in mind if you're planning to do a trip like this. And today we are going to define the trip like this. So what to do, where to go, what maybe to skip, and especially like what tips, tricks and experience I gathered in 2 trips. I have visited the country twice. First time was in 2019 for 21 days and in 2024 for a total of 24 days. So a little bit of knowledge gathered. There are some regions I haven't yet been to, so I'm no expert on that. But on the other ones, I can tell you a little something. So we are going to put that in different categories and then put a check mark on that one by one. Let's go. We start off with the route you should take, and there is kind of a standard route, and that's why I took that twice and haven't been to the eastern part and the eastern beaches, but did the route on the inland and then on the western beaches. So you can choose to either go clockwise or counterclockwise to travel either first into the cultural triangle or the beaches. So that is the first choice that you have, and I think it is quite an important choice because it might define if you start off with more chilled on the beaches or end up with that, because depending on the times when you are in the country, it might get quite hot. I've been there in the beginning of 2024, so March, April, and it was quite hot in the inland, in the cultural triangle, so it might maybe make sense to turn the other way around, but for that check the weather, the climate charts later in this video as well. So now if you have decided with which one you want to start, we go clockwise and start off in Negombo, because that is a town next to Colombo and that is where the main airport is, the international airport, and you will quite possibly land there. And then I would suggest, if you go clockwise, then get out of the city. There's not much to see or do in my opinion, and get to Dambulla right away. And I would suggest to stay in Dambulla because from there you can visit the cultural triangle quite easily within a couple of days. So 3 to 4 days, depending on how much culture you want to get in, might be enough. And there you can go to the Sigiriya, the Lion's Rock, or you can do the first safari if you want to, but I would suggest another one for that. And I'm going to tell you later, or you can check out my national park versus fight video where I compare different national parks to each other. But yeah, there are a lot of temples around, a lot of cultural sites, so start off with that. And then traveling further down towards Kandy, there is the Tooth Temple to visit, where it's supposed to be a tooth of the Buddha in there with ceremonies around, and you will get kind of into the higher highlands already, and quite a huge town. I wouldn't stay too long, so 2 days, maybe 3 max, but that should be absolutely enough to explore a little bit of the city and the surroundings. There's a spiral temple as well, so it's quite easy to get there from Kandy. And then on the next day, the next morning, you should take the train down to Yala. That's the most famous thing to do in the whole country and one of the most beautiful train rides in the whole wide world. So that is a must in my opinion, and it also takes you somewhere, so you have transportation and a activity in one go. And then in Yala, I would suggest to stay a little longer for like 3, maybe 4 days, because it is quite a cute town, really easy for backpackers, a lot of nice, really cool places to go to eat. There are a lot of hikes to be made around to Yala Rock, or you can go to the Adams Peak and do excursions every day or visit one of the tea plantations, which is quite famous as well. From there, I would either suggest to go to Udawalawa if you want to do the Udawalawe safari, or if you want to skip on that because you may be tight on time, then go to Tisa right away and do the Yala safari from there. If you have to choose because you are tight on the time budget, I would choose Yala over Udawalawe. And if not, then go to Udawalawe, do that for one day, do the safari, and then go to Tisa afterwards and do Yala for a day. So it makes sense to get there like in the afternoon, maybe check out in, for example, Ella, drive towards Yala, have a good night of sleep, because then you will get up early in the morning, do the safari, and then check out in the evening and already leave Tisa, because there's not much to do apart from the safari. So it makes sense to get out of there and maybe head towards the beaches already and not spend another night there. But you can also do that, but I wouldn't recommend it. I would just go out, and with most hotels or Airbnbs, it's really easy to just leave your luggage there for the time of the safari, get back, grab your luggage, and then hop into the bus, tuk-tuk or taxi or whatever. I'm going to talk about that later on as well, and get out and then head towards Digwella, for example. Really cool beach town with a lot of surfers around and really nice beaches, so I highly recommend that. And from there on, there are you can do like multiple, you can almost do endless stops alongside the coast, because there are beautiful beaches everywhere. There are a few stops that I would recommend though. That is Mirissa, which is quite famous for this coconut tree hill, which is quite cool, and you can go surfing, you can go snorkeling, you can go on the parrot rock there as well. Another town I would suggest is Gol or Galle. That is a really cool colonial town, so a little different vibe. It's an old Dutch fortress, if I'm not mistaken, and you can visit that. And if you go through there, it feels a little bit like being in Cuba, so it's kind of cool. And then towards the end, I would head towards Bentota, because that is quite a reasonable distance towards the airport, so you can spend your last days in Bentota, and then when it's time to get to the airport, you can get there quite easily without having to spend a night in Colombo or Negombio, because I wouldn't do that. That's bigger cities, they are not that nice. Rather stay longer at the beaches and go up as late as possible. And because of all these suggested stops, I would say you should absolutely not go under 2 weeks. I would say go for 3 weeks. That is easy. Like I said, first time I did 21 days. Totally fine. I could stop somewhere for a day longer if I wanted. You can do it in 2 weeks. You could do it in less, but I wouldn't suggest that, because it doesn't make sense and it might feel very rushed. And like I said, in most of those towns, I would spend a couple of more days to really experience and to be able to appreciate. So much for the route, but how to do that? And therefore, transportation is quite vital, and I would highly suggest the buses. There are the blue buses. They are from private companies, I was told, and they have music and LEDs in it, and it's loud. And then there are red ones, that are the public ones. They are a little bit slower, so if you're kind of scared and not sure about the buses, maybe start with those first. It is a little sketchy sometimes, though. They are going pretty fast, they're pretty loud, and the bus driver might text on the phone while driving. But yet it is fun. It is so cheap, so you can save a lot of money by going this way. And it is easy to go everywhere, and locals will come towards you. Sometimes they try to sell you a tuk-tuk ride, but a lot of times I experienced they were like, where are you trying to go? You say the town, and then they will wave down a bus bus stops you can get in, and they will take you to the right place. So very helpful, but I'm going to talk about the locals later on anyways. Then I was told sometimes it makes sense to stay nearby a speed bump because the bus has to slow down at the speed bump, so it's easier to stop it completely to get in. Otherwise, check on Google Maps or something like that where there are bus stops, because you might not recognize them because they're quite random, or ask a local. Another option is going for taxis. That is always a little bit more expensive. For longer routes, it might make sense if you don't want to take the bus, because then you're a little safer, a lot quicker than by tuk-tuk. But for short rides, I would recommend the tuk-tuk. And I'm going to talk about how to use them later on as well. And then there's the option to rent a tuk-tuk, for example, which is quite cool. I was told that is a little bit dangerous and that there are quite some accidents with tourists because they are not used to drive them and they are not used to the traffic in Sri Lanka. But I think it is quite a cool option, but that will lead for not being able to use the other transportation, which is the train. Like I said, from Kandy to Yala or the other way around, because you would have to leave your tuk-tuk somewhere and you can't take it to the other town when you're in the train. So that is a decision or a choice that you have to make and that you have to decide before you go that way if you want to do the whole route. Oh, and before I forget about it, the train is really cheap. It is absolutely beautiful. It is packed with people. First time was even worse than the second time. It was third class, and last time it was second class. But yeah, you will be surrounded by locals. It is a lot of fun and something you can't experience that way anywhere else, in my knowledge at least. In the whole series, I talked a lot about the food, and I can't stress it enough. Try the Sri Lanka curry and rice. It is so delicious. It is so good. I couldn't really appreciate it the first time. I don't know why, but the second time I absolutely fell in love with it. I would go for it each and every day, because you can check different restaurants with different chefs and different places for a way different experience, because they will cook it a different way everywhere. And so that makes it a lot of fun to explore and experience it. You can also have dals, rotis, kuta, especially for breakfast. There were a lot of that. And fruits, fresh fruits, so delicious, so good. I would use the chance to be in a country like that all the time, to have fresh, special foods, I would call it. Like have a fresh passion fruit. That is so good, my absolute favorite. So yeah, food is a absolute recommendation, and there are a lot of good restaurants around, and they are really cheap, like I told you in the last video. For special needs like vegetarians or vegan like me, absolutely easy. The Sri Lankan curry and rice is vegan already, so you can get around quite easily. No problems on that side in my experience. For the topic accommodations, in the last video I already told you it is $41 in average that I spend. You can go way cheaper. There are accommodations for 2 people which are only like $10 to $15 per night, but you can also go way higher up, but then you will get a really good price value experience. And so yeah, I found that really cool. I had private stays that were a blast. Like the first time I've been there, I stayed for $50 a night in a giant room with a private infinity pool. And so yeah, check out, I would suggest to try Airbnb. I'm going to put a link down below. If you use that, if you don't have Airbnb already, to sign in, then I will get a cut of it. So that will be highly appreciated by me. But I always can recommend Airbnb, only good experience so far. And especially in a country like Sri Lanka, plan ahead early on because you might fall in love with a lot of accommodations on Airbnb and then you have to choose which ones to go to. And that is quite a hard task, so start early on with the link down below. Now let's talk about the people. Like I said, I had so many good experiences, friendly, helpful, a lot of times. Yes, there have been, like always and everywhere, people that try to get $1 out of you or two, but I think it is quite a poor country in total, so fair enough, they try to earn their money, and in most times they haven't been too rude or too confrontative about it, so I was quite cool with it, and all the other ones absolutely friendly. A lot of fun, especially if you stay in smaller homestays. You will get in touch with locals and talk with them about normal day life, all day activities, and that's a whole different way to experience the country. And I really liked that about Sri Lanka, because in my experience they were really open-minded and very open to talk to you and share stories and something like that. So I liked it. I hope you liked this video. If you haven't done that already, like it right now. And if you're down there, maybe click on the subscribe button as well, so you will not miss out on future videos. There is going to be a Norway series with a teaser coming in a few days. And that one, whoa, that hits differently. Like, it's way different than everything you have seen on this channel before. So be ready to have your mind blown away and subscribe for that. Topic number 6, is that right? I don't know. Next topic is beaches, activities and highlights. Like I said, train ride for sure, but the beaches, and there are a few stops where you can do whale watching, which is quite cool, but I'm a little bit fed up with it and I wouldn't necessarily do it again. But if you never ever have done it before, it might be for you. Don't expect too much. I hoped for the whales to breach, so to jump out of the water, because I was told that's more likely in warmer regions, but it didn't happen yet. So yeah, most times it's just a fin that you can see, but there's been a lot of dolphins. I didn't like that they were kind of chased by all the boats. So yeah, you have to decide on that if that's fine with you. And if you're there at the beaches in the right season, you can go diving as well and have a cool experience like that. If not, surfing. Sri Lanka is an absolute surfer's paradise. I was told on the Trincomalee, so on the eastern coast, and Trincomalee is a city there, it should be really, really good. But like I said, Hikaduva, for example, especially for beginners, really good. But there are places for advanced or for pros as well. And obviously, and for me, one of the absolute highlights is the safaris. I would absolutely recommend, no, I wouldn't recommend, I command you to do a safari when you're there. You have to choose which one. Maybe my older video helps, but you should do one absolutely for sure, full stop, period. And then there also is the cultural side, and I would highly recommend Anuradhapura. Had a really cool day over there. Our tuk-tuk driver, we rented the tuk-tuk for the whole day with a driver, and he was like taking us by the hand, and he was going praying and told us a lot about the site and also about the religion and all the rituals he was doing and everybody else was doing. So a lot of knowledge that we got there, and a really cool experience to be with him and do this with him together. Really like that. And it's a part of the country. Talking of which, there are also the ashrams. So there's a really huge melting pot of the yoga culture, and therefore you can go in different places where you can do that and really be focused on this kind of things if you're interested in that, and spend a couple of days with like-minded people and practicing your yoga and maybe having new experiences with that as well.
Time now for your latest weather forecast.
Now it's time for the weather chart, which I'm going to put here again. And as you can see, it's quite fine all year round, especially water. When you go into the ocean, oftentimes the ocean is as warm as the air, and at least bathtub warm, so really cool to go in. It is said that there are different seasons on the island, that one half is going to experience the monsoon season like at every time of the year. So either you are on the most western side and then there is monsoon, and on the other side not, and then in the rest of the year it's going to be twisted around. But in my experience, I've been there the first time in 2019, it was August I've been there, and the second time was April. So quite different times, but still it was fine everywhere. I did the round trip in both of the vacations, and yet I didn't really experience a real monsoon season. There's been a day or two where it was raining a little bit or a little bit more, but nothing too bad. So yeah, in my experience, it is absolutely fine. And now we are going to try to hit the rapid fire questions again. I'm going to try to be a little faster than the last time. So the most valuable item in my opinion is sunscreen first, because you always have to protect yourself. And second is a sarong, which is kind of a scarf that you wrap around yourself, and then you can go into temples because your knees and your shoulders have to be covered to be allowed to go in. So yeah, pack that, or maybe buy it when you're over there. Which kind of clothes? Obviously warm and light clothes to be easy everywhere, but yeah, something to cover up sometimes, but yeah, mostly you will be fine because of the warm weather. A missing item, there haven't really been one for me. I could have taken a couple of US dollars with me, but it's not really necessary. You can just get some cash from the ATM and you will be absolutely fine. So yeah, nothing I missed out on, so that was totally fine. The best places, in my opinion, Anuradhapura for culture, like I said, Ella for the vibe and for the train ride, Yala for the safari, and choose one of the beach towns. You can't really go wrong on those. So yeah, just choose one and be happy with it. Overrated place, in my opinion, was Kandy. Spent a couple of days there, but yeah, apart from the Tooth Temple and even that one, it is cool to see all the people that are hyped for their religion and they are really gladful and grateful to be there. But for me, it was not really necessary and you couldn't see too much anyways. So yeah, I would skip that or only stay there for the train ride and for leaving, basically. The main spoken language is Singal, but with English you will be totally fine, like almost everywhere, so that is really cool. But something to have in mind: first, istuti is thank you, and in my opinion you should always know that when you go somewhere. And if you shake your head, that is yes, and if you nod, then that is no. So that can be kind of confusing, but I think for most of the locals, they are already used to the tourists, so they already know if you say yes, then something might be wrong, and if you say yes, you still mean yes. And something else which is very important in my opinion to be respectful: if you hand over cash, then do that with your left arm, and the right hand will be placed on your arm, because that is the dirty hand with which you will, if you know what I mean. And so you will signal, okay, I'm going to give you the money with the good hand and not dirty money, and this one is safe and somewhat apart from that. At least that is what I was told, and people do that all the time, and I saw locals do that, so sometimes that is a tip as well. Try to copy the gestures or what locals do to be respectful and yeah, not to be too touristy, but more like someone who experiences the local life. The local currency is the Sri Lanka rupee, and 330 of those rupees are equal to $1 US. 300 makes it a little bit easier to calculate, but most things are so cheap that you don't have to stress out too much on that topic. Who is this country for? Almost everyone, I would say. There's culture, there are adventures, there is a lot, and I think that might be a good part to point that out. Sri Lanka has been the winner of the which country is the best as a female solo traveler for a couple of years now. So that is a thing that I think is really cool, which states a lot about how safe it is, and that is quite easy for first timers as well. So if you go backpacking the first time, yes, Thailand might be a good option as well, but Sri Lanka is cheap, it is safe, you will not be scammed as often as in Thailand in my experience, and also the infrastructure is really good. Like I said, you can go by bus everywhere, you will find a tuk-tuk everywhere, especially if you follow the tip that's going to follow in a minute. Who is it not for? I don't know. If you're really keen on everything has to be tidy and spot on, then it might be hard at times. But like I said, if you are able to spend a little dollar more, then you will get really nice accommodations as well, and then you can take a taxi, and then it might be okay as well. But yeah, like the train ride is not the tidiest. You can go first class, and that is supposed to be tidier, and there's a aircon and stuff like that. But I personally wouldn't do that and wouldn't suggest to travel like that, because if you want to experience the country, do it the local way. The internet and your phone connectivity, I was blown away again. Connectivity is absolutely fine, like everywhere. On the safari, there are places where it's kind of hard to get a connection, but even there you might get some, and it was quite cheap as well. You can go with eSIM. I bought a SIM over there and got it at the airport. They put it in the phone, they set everything up, and it was absolutely fine. It was, I don't remember, $10 per person, and enough data for the whole time, so easy. Now for the safety aspect, as I said, for female travels, for solo travel, it was awarded again, so it might be really good, it must be really good. But for the bus drivers, as I said, that is kind of scary sometimes, and the whole traffic thing is sometimes a little bit like, whoa, what's happening here? But apart from that, totally fine. For the visa, for me as a German traveler, absolutely easy. Visa on arrival, no problem at all. It was $60 per person. If you come from the US, I think it is the same way, because there has been US citizens standing in line for the visa with us as well. Do you get a culture shock in Sri Lanka? Yes, absolutely. If you haven't been to Asia, it might be a lot at times, especially like in Colombo, Negombo, the bigger cities. It might be very loud and a lot with traffic. And even in the more rural sites, it is absolutely different from the western side of the world, but that is the reason to go there, isn't it? So yeah, I would still absolutely recommend it, and I really enjoy this culture shock. Are there any scams? As I said, sometimes someone will come around and be like, oh, you're waiting for the bus, where are you going? You tell the city, and it's like, oh, my brother has a tuk-tuk, I'm going to bring it to him, and then you can... Nah, you can do that, but you don't have to. I had also 1 or 2 occasions where they were telling there are no buses going today, especially when we arrived. They were telling us, no, it's national holidays, so there are no buses. You have to take a taxi, or the bus is already gone. You can't take it. You have to take a tuk-tuk, something like that. Sometimes don't believe it, try it out, or ask someone else, because that might not be true. On the way at the end towards the airport, it was the same. They were telling us there are no buses, and I was like, there's a bus. The most important app if you go there is Pick Me, and that is the secret tip that I talked about earlier. It is an app like Grab. If you have been to the other Asian countries, you might know that, or a little bit like Uber, where you can call a taxi or a tuk-tuk. Sometimes I just use it to calculate how much a ride should be and then talk to someone and negotiate a price with them in person without using the app. Because yes, the prices on the app are really low, and sometimes I'm like, nah, I'd rather pay a little more, and then it gets towards the driver instead of going towards the app. But yeah, sometimes if you can't find a tuk-tuk around, you can call one that way. So that is really easy and good. And most of the drivers will hand you their information like WhatsApp numbers right away anyway, so you can call them again if you want a second ride. And then sometimes it makes sense to check how much to pay for a certain distance. Anything else to tell you? Yes, avoid the tap water. With food the same, sometimes be a little mindful of what to eat, where to eat, and if it looks fine. My stomach is quite a fighter, so it's okay, but tap water is to be avoided by any cost, and the same often goes for ice in your drinks, because that might be made out of tap water and then your belly might be fighting you instead of the food or the water, and you don't want that on your vacation. My conclusion for this country: yes, yes, yes. I am a big fan of Sri Lanka. I already told that a couple of times. It has not been an accident that I've been there twice, and I hope with all these tips you will have an awesome experience over there as well. If that's the case, let me know down in the comments below. And now it's time to say goodbye to the warm weather video, because it's going to be cold when there's going to be the Norway teaser. Stay tuned for that, and then I hope to see you around or see you somewhere, sometime, somehow. Until then, enjoy life, have a good planning phase, enjoy Sri Lanka, and be pumped.
Good night, and thank you for watching.